Nick, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for the invitation.
So I think it'll be great to have a conversation today about who you were and now who you've become.
Okay.
So I know when you post on LinkedIn, you often talk about sort of the growth that you've had, the journey that you've been on. So maybe you could put that into context of who was it that you were?
Yeah, well, not so long ago, I was a outwardly successful salesperson who was inwardly struggling with high anxiety, panic attacks, a deep sense of responsibility for my family, and to keep going, but very conflicted about the cultures that I worked in, why I was doing the things that I was doing. And I always think I was searching and believing that if I just kept going, then I was going to find what I was looking for. I wasn't ever really sure at the time what that was, but I just felt like I just had to keep going and then I would find it. And I guess sometimes it felt like that's me retiring. Maybe I just need to get through the amount of conversations I have with myself about, well, if I can just get through the next 10 years, which sounds crazy now, 10 years, then I can retire and then I'll be okay. Then I can do what I really want, even though I didn't know what that was. And I find with nearly 9 out of 10 conversations I have with salespeople, and they'll include the line, well, when I leave sales, I'm going to do this. There's very few people you speak to who are like, oh, I love sales and I'm working it forever. So yeah, that's who I was. Don't get me wrong. I've, great family life, wife and 2 kids. I was very happy in that regard. But that felt like a small percentage of my time. The rest of it was trying to deal with this career that I'd fallen into. Everyone falls into sales, being successful at, and then essentially felt kind of trapped by in the end.
Can you describe what that trapped feeling felt like? What was that trapped? What was it?
Well, I got used to a certain lifestyle. Sales pays really well. And in my 20s, that was great. Buying a nice car, buying a nice watch, buying nice clothes, feels like freedom. I think I know that we're all free at heart. That our essential nature is complete freedom. But we believe that we're not because of the way the mind works, and we believe we need to do things to achieve freedom. So we need to go in status, wealth, activities, substances, relationships. I think all of us are searching for this freedom. And I thought I could find it through these things that I was buying and acquiring and doing. So I was constantly in this outward experience looking. And I really enjoyed it at the start. Worked in some great cultures, met my girlfriend who's now my wife and things like that. So it was great. And then things started to kind of turn, I guess, when the targets keep coming, you upgrade your lifestyle. Looking back, you're like, wow, if I hadn't just kept upgrading my lifestyle as I kept earning more money, yeah, that would have been different. But yeah, and then you need to, I can buy a nicer car. Well, that's good. I just need to close bigger deals. So this can escalate quite quickly. Found myself dealing, as an experienced salesperson, dealing with major accounts and having big targets and working in some really difficult cultures. And then kind of it crept up on me. But yeah, I had my first panic attack when I was about 28, 29. So I'll say out of the blue because I've never experienced a panic attack before, but obviously there was a context of some high anxiety along the way, and always been an anxious person, I think. Always very inward focusing mind, always going and creating problems for myself in that regard. But yeah, I had my first panic attack like 28. And that forced me to look at my life and think, well, why is this happening? And that was probably the start of the inward journey, if you like, of like, well, who am I? Why am I here? What am I here to do? What do I really want? What is life about? Like, what is this thing that we're in? Because I feel like I've woken up inside it now, and I'm like, well, what is this? Rather than just getting on with it, it forced me to stop and look. So I did all sorts of different therapies to try and work out and get rid of my panic attack. That's really what I wanted to do. If I could just get rid of these panic attacks, now I could get on with my career and my life, because it was going really well. And that was kind of where it started, was trying to get rid of them, which is an interesting approach. And yeah, that's kind of where things changed for me, pivoted.
So it feels like the panic attacks was the first alarm that you had. Have you been able to now understand where they came from or why they were there?
Well, there's different ways of looking at it. It's certainly sounds really cliched and cheesy to say it, but it's still teaching me things today, So it's a huge teacher. One of the great coaches, Robert Ellis, calls it your dark ally. So something who's on your side, but doesn't feel like it at the time. Sorry, what was the question again?
Just if you were able, through therapy or however, if you knew maybe where the panic attacks were coming from or what was the cause of them.
Yeah, I think it's the difference between who I was pretending to be and who I really was. And in sales, I had to wear a mask every day to get through every day, because it didn't really feel like it was my life. I learnt the rules of the game, I was good at it, but it never came naturally. And I used to look at other salespeople who would just be naturally good, and I'd sit there and look at them and think, how are they doing that? They just seem to know what to say and what to do. Whereas I felt I have to really learn what to do, really treat it as a process. Like I could do it, but it just wasn't natural. And so, yeah, I just started to not really understand where I was fitting in. And I knew I had to be a certain way to get by. But the more I had to pretend to be something, the more, I guess, what I really was or who I really was, the gap was getting bigger, I think. And it was my body that was telling me, because the body and mind are intimately connected, but it felt like the mind had been screaming for a while, but I just ignored it. And then the body was like, right, well, if you're not listening, then we're going to take over and we're going to force you to listen.
It's crazy, isn't it, how we find ways of suppressing or ignoring. I think as men we do that. I certainly did for a really long time. And then I also experienced panic attacks and, quite deep depression at a stage. And I feel like it's like you're overriding everything and you're constantly fighting against this energy that's inside.
Yeah.
And it's almost like your body says to you, nope, if you're not going to listen, I'm going to make you listen. So I think a lot about intuition. Do you feel like that's intuition? It's like your body knows, your mind knows better than you do for what's best for you. I'm still trying to reconcile what it is. What would you think? What do you think it is?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's almost like it's a refusal to accept what you are, and maybe not what you are, but what is here now. Like, things are here now. We have bodily sensations, we have feelings. And personally, I've tried to minimize how much I focus on them. And I've gone into the mind to tell myself a story about ignoring it and moving past it. So I think there's this, life is always inviting you to meet it and show you who you are and what you're really here to do, what you're here to learn. And the more that we ignore that, we can do it for a certain period of time, but it's like, it starts knocking on the door to say, okay, well, you've gone on this path, but this is kind of this mission that you need to look at, and I'm going to keep knocking on that door. And then if you don't listen, I'm going to bang on that door. And if you don't listen, I'm going to kick the door down. And for me, that was the panic attacks of like, right, you need to listen now too. You need to wake up and kind of lock into what you're actually here to do. And I don't mean like this, I have this special mission that I need to complete. It's more about waking up inside the dream and really coming to terms with what's here and seeing what's around and working out who you are and what you can do and how you can align yourself with life and how you can experience it and enjoy it as much as possible.
Wow. So when you start having to when you start to figure out what the panic attacks are, you go to therapy. You said you tried some different types of therapy. So what was the journey from there? Because you're getting these wake up calls.
Yeah.
And then emotionally, what's the journey that you needed to go on to understand what was happening within you?
I think I'm still on it. I don't think it's like, yeah, work that out, done and dusted, move on. Yeah, they're still a part of my life, you know. I don't regularly have panic attacks, but being overwhelmed by sensations and feeling like sometimes I can't handle the energy that's inside me, I find that quite regularly. You know, I experience that quite regularly. But yeah, the therapy journey was initially, like I said, to try and get rid of them, just get these things off my plate. And then it really came about, well, how can I manage them and keep my life on track? And that was the real struggle, was like, how can I show up in a high pressure role? And my panic attacks seemed to be very much triggered by work situations, particularly being on the spot, presentations, QBRs. That's kind of like my worst combo. You know, if someone said, Nick, we'd love you to stand up and do a presentation on this deal, that's when my stomach would drop and I would start to think, oh my God, I can't deal with this. My body would take over. I need to get out of here. Everyone's going to realize you're a fraud. You're an idiot. You can't do what you're doing. This is going to be terrible. So it was managing that, which meant I never stepped into leadership, even though I really wanted to. I never put myself out there more than I had to. I tried to get by and hide. I mean, the amount of customer meetings I did where I'd have multiple panic attacks throughout the meeting. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know really how I got through it. I never told anyone except for my wife. Never told anyone at work, of course, because, you know, what would I say and what would they think? And, you know, so I couldn't tell anyone. Yeah, I don't know how I got through it, but I was balancing these two things and always trying to find the cure, the answer, but just kept going. You know, I never shied away from anything. I wouldn't put my hand up to do a presentation, but if I was asked to do it, I wouldn't back out of it. I wouldn't call in sick or anything like that. And that's not to say like, well, look how brave I am. It was just more like, you know, I wouldn't let myself off the hook. I kept going towards it and saying, I need to get through this and get on with it. So yeah, it was very much about trying to manage those two very conflicting things and feeling like I really had no choice. Like, I've got to keep going. I've built this career. Be mad to throw it all away. What will I do if I leave? Can't let anyone down. You're only, you know, I think with a lot of salespeople, there's a lot of guilt that comes when you're struggling, because when you earn a lot of money, you know, it's like, well, you should just put up with it then. Look how much money you're earning. Look at your holidays and your cars and your houses and all that. Look, you know, look at the average salary in the UK. You're earning 5, 10, 20 times that, whatever it is. How dare you moan about stress or anxiety? Yeah, look at the doctors and the nurses. What about them? I think there's a huge amount of guilt because you spend time with your friends from school, and you hear how much what they're doing, what they're earning, and you just feel bad moaning. It's like, how can I moan about my job? So I felt a lot of guilt, and a lot of salespeople I speak to feel trapped by the money, and they feel guilt saying they're not enjoying it or they're finding it difficult. So that was a big part of it, was the guilt.
It's interesting because it's like, and I think this is definitely a very typical male response, because I was in this situation as well. And lots of people I speak to are kind of similar in the fact that there's two things that happen here. One is you just decided to grind.
Yes.
It's already hard. I'm just going to grit my teeth and grind and get through it. Despite any internal turmoil or feeling, because it's like that's what we were taught in sales, which was it is hard, it is tough, it is this, it is that, it is horrific. Cool. The only way through is to grind through it. And it's funny because at the beginning of the career, I don't know if you experienced, it sounds like you've experienced these things as you got more successful. So bigger accounts, bigger targets, bigger expectations. At the beginning of my career, I didn't find that. I was just like, well, I know it's hard. I know I'll grind. I'll just get through it. But then later on, that's when I experienced challenges as well because of the expectations and the numbers and those things. But a typical response is almost just to grind your way through it. It seems like that's because I think about this a lot, which is the only way in that situation for me at the time was the only way is through. I'm not going to quit. So I just have to get through it. Did you feel similar, that you just had to get through the moment?
Yeah, exactly. Like quitting never came up because I was like, well, what would I do? Like what would I do? Like I'm already way too deep. I'm already, that ship has sailed. I've chosen this path. I brought my family along with it. What am I going to do now? Just quit? And when I thought about it, I was like, would it make the panic attacks go away? Like, would that actually work? I kind of thought to myself, what if I quit sales and, got a job at the local council office, in data processing? Nothing wrong with that. But I was trying to think of what's the least stressful job where I could just hide and just turn up and just do whatever it is needed to be done. Well, there's probably still some stress and some pressure in those jobs. I probably have to do things that I was uncomfortable with. So I would end up thinking that's probably not going to fix it anyway. So, just the quitting never came into it, not because, I'm the most resilient person and I've got grit and determination. It was from fear, absolutely from fear. That was what kept me going, terrified of what else would happen. What was more scary? Facing the panic attacks, which I could kind of deal with, like just about, or, whatever else it would be. I didn't know. I had no one to, obviously I told my wife everything, but she was just as scared as me because she wasn't sure what I was going to do next. And she just wanted me to be okay.
The fear.
Yeah.
It's the thing. It's the fear, isn't it? It's the fear of what next, because you're already in a difficult situation. Well, the fear of the unknown, the fear of the unexpected, and you have a family and a wife to support. It's the fear.
Yeah, there's fear everywhere. I've always, I think, lived with fear being a huge part of my life. Yeah, absolutely.
What happens next from there? How do you get on a wellness journey? How do you get better from those kind of dark moments?
Well, they kind of got worse in that a couple of the cultures I worked in were just very difficult to deal with. And I put a lot more pressure on myself to say, well, I'm going to see if I can deal with this now. So kept pushing, kept going, and was managing okay. Was getting through. I was very much getting through life, and that sounds, it was earning a lot of money, so this wasn't, hell for me. But mentally, physically, getting through every day was very challenging. And to be honest, what happened is that I realized that I had enough money to stop, at least for a bit. And I realized I was sitting at work and I'd completely lost my motivation. And I thought, well, where is this motivation gone? Because I've always been, something was motivating me, fear, whatever it was. And I realized that there was suddenly this window where my mind went, well, you've got enough money now where you could maybe stop. And that was, I kind of wanted to avoid that because I was like, oh, okay. And then I suddenly realized the only reason I was doing it was for money. Because as soon as that thought came in of, well, you could take some time off here, like you could take 6 months off and decide what you want to do. You've got enough money to take 6 months off. Why don't you do that? Suddenly I was like, okay, well, I've just realized the only thing keeping me going is the money. And I realized I was bored more than anything. I was actually just bored. Wasn't doing the activities that I was doing day to day. Didn't interest me. I didn't feel like I was using my natural skills. I didn't feel like it was very creative. And I just felt like I just kind of stalled. And so I realized I could take some time off. And then I was flicking through LinkedIn, avoiding work. And I saw this post from a coach called Robin. And he basically said, do you feel like this? Do you feel like this? And do you feel like this? And I read this post and I was like, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Can't remember the exact words, but, bored and unfulfilled, anxious, but still pushing, lost of motivation, but pretty sure there's more for you out there. And I was just like, yeah, all of these things. Sent him a message. We had a chat and I started coaching with him. Didn't know what coaching was, but I just knew that when I read that message, he understood something about me and could sum up how I was feeling. And so that led me to him. And once we started working together, I started to process everything that I've been through. He pointed to me to what I really am beyond my thoughts and feelings of who I believed I was. Helped me to see the identity that I created and how it was all made up, what the driving forces were in my life, what I was believing was true in my life that wasn't really true, and started to help me understand what it is that I really wanted to do. That came about by my own work, but just started to point me in the right direction. And that was a couple of years ago. We worked together for about 2 years, and it changed my life, saved my life, I guess. Like, I do feel genuinely terrified about where I'd be if I hadn't met him and had those conversations. Like, I don't know where I would be. I mean, maybe everything would be fine. I don't know. But it feels like without that, I would have been really struggling.
Well, if things were only getting worse,
Yeah.
And if you're going to stay in the same situation, or just take on bigger roles, bigger targets, even if you sidestep, there's still going to be pressure and anxiety and everything else.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily just going to go away just like that. It takes time, real time, to undo it.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you actually resigned, got to the day where you resigned from your sales role, do you remember that day? How did it feel?
Well, I remember a little bit before that, we went on holiday for 2 weeks. We had a lovely holiday, really nice. By about the end of the first week, I started to relax. I don't know if other salespeople can relate to just, it takes a while to wind down. And the last week, I was like, I'm actually genuinely really happy. I was reading on holiday, enjoying time with the kids. I felt present. My mind was quiet. My body felt relaxed. I was like, this is awesome. I got back on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday, I was feeling so good. I was like, I'm going to check all my emails. And so I just get them all cleared out of the way so that I'm all good for Monday morning. I felt so good. I was like, I'm back. This is it. I'm done. This is great. Went through them. It took about an hour, and I felt a bit anxious, a bit uneasy. I was a bit like, well, it's normal, getting back into it. Anyway, I got to Monday morning. Got to about 10:30, 11 o'clock. Nothing had happened. Hadn't done any meetings. My boss hadn't, told me I was in trouble or anything. Nothing had gone wrong. My wife just came to get something out of the study, and she's like, oh, how's it all going? And I just started crying. I I just yeah I just thought I can't do this anymore. Um, there was nothing had happened. I was just like, I just can't do this anymore. She's like, well, just quit. You can quit today. We've already talked about it. Just resign today. I was like, yeah, maybe I will. I didn't. I waited a couple of months because had some shares that were vesting, and maybe there was all the kind of stories you tell yourself to keep going. But yeah, it wasn't long after that I did, and I just felt like just relief really. There was a lot of trepidation because I didn't have a plan. I knew I wasn't retiring. Like, I had enough money to take a few months off, but I was going to have to do something else. But I had Robin, and I had some time to think and some time to just evaluate. So the overwhelming feeling was one of relief. Obviously, the fear was there somewhere of like, well, what are you going to do? What happens? What happens next? What's the plan? But I kind of just knew I had to do it.
Well, once you'd resigned, what do the next few months look like of figuring out your plan, soul searching, not knowing what's next? What does that look and feel like?
Oh, it's the best few months of my life. It was brilliant because I just hung out with my family, had lunch with friends I hadn't seen very often. I jokingly told people, oh, I've retired now. And I was like, this is amazing. Just being able to enjoy life. Like the days felt so long, and it was like, wow, every day just felt like there's so much happening and so much to be done. Like I just felt alive. So I felt like there's so much time. I had so much energy again. And, of course you have more time because you're not working, but just my mind was clear. My body felt good. And it was just, this is brilliant. I was really enjoying myself. And I was working with Robin, getting myself, because I was just like, is it where I'm working or is it sales? Like what is it that I need to change? And so I felt so good. I decided to take another role. And I talked to Robin about becoming a coach because my experience with him was so life-changing. I was like, wow, what a great job that you've helped me so much. That's such a cool job. Like, how much do you get paid? And he sort of like showed me, and I was like, told me, and I was like, that's pretty good. Like, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could become a coach and keep my family in this lifestyle that they're used to, which is what I really wanted to do. Not that my family demanding it on me at all, but I wanted to provide a good life for them, like we'd always had. So I started to think about it, and then I got an offer for, it's a great opportunity, pre-IPO SaaS thing, and I was just like, well, I'm feeling really good. Maybe I'll just give it one more go and see. So I went back, carried on coaching with Robin. Went back 9 months. It was okay. I felt all right. I was very different. I wasn't as attached and invested in it all. I wasn't as personally wrapped up in it. Worked hard, but I wasn't. It was different. It was definitely different. It was definitely easier. Got fired after 9 months. Not going to make any excuses. There's a lot of stuff going on in the company, but I hadn't closed anything, and got this call to go on this call with HR, and I'd learned so much about how my mind works and who I was that I was able to actually be really present with the experience, and I won't say enjoy it, but I was very just like, oh, I'm going to get fired here. And I was just like, oh, wow, yeah, this is happening. Instead of, a year before, I'd have been like, oh my God, this is the end of my world. Like, this is horrendous. What am I going to do? Humiliating and shameful and, panicking about the future. And it was more just like, oh, okay, this is happening. And like the call finished and I just sat there, and I remember just sitting there for about half an hour and just being there with the feelings and stuff, and just thinking, this is okay. I can handle this. This actually isn't that bad. Yes, I've got concerns about the future and what I'm going to do, but I'm okay. This is all right. Told my wife. She obviously freaked out, but soon managed to say, don't worry, I'm okay. I think she was more worried about my reaction. She was like, why aren't you more concerned? And I was like, no, I am concerned. I'm okay with it. I'm at peace with it. And then I called Robin like the next day. I was like, oh, I got fired yesterday. And he was like, oh, right, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I think I am actually. He was like, all right, well, what are we going to do next? And I was like, well, how do I become a coach? And he was like, well, do you want me to teach you? Do you want me to coach you to be a coach? And that's where that journey started, really.
What a journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what did Robin teach you?
Well, he's a phenomenal coach. And he taught me so many things. I'm so grateful to him. Yeah, I don't know where I'd be in my life without him. Still a very close friend. He taught me who I am, or taught me how to recognize who I am beyond thoughts and feelings and the traditional things that we associate. How our experience of life is actually created, and that's not coming from the outside in, it's coming from what we make of it. How the mind kind of really works and our relationship to it. The fact that we are all essentially free and live in a permanent state of well-being until we associate with and identify with the mind, which takes us out of that. And so there is nothing to find out there. You don't need anything externally. There's nothing that you could ever achieve or find out there that could ever make you more than what you are already. And once I fully got that, I realized that I'm already free, and that all these things I thought I wanted, I realized why I thought I wanted them, and realized I didn't need them. And that doesn't mean that I then decided to become a hippie and live on a commune. When you stop chasing things that you don't really need, then you can put your energy into, well, what actually do I want to create here? And so he completely, 180'd my view on life and how it all works, as well as teaching me the coaching skills to actually help other people to recognize who they are and their innate freedom. And then on a practical side, how to run a coaching business, because there's many great coaches, but you need to know how to run a business. And that's been fascinating to create my own business and work out how that works. And obviously my sales skills come in very handy. But yeah, that was the whole package really. And when I was I was in sales for 19 years, and I read 3 sales books, and I got through half of a podcast once. I just when the sales day was over, I never wanted to think about sales. Didn't want anything to do with it. On the weekend, couldn't think of anything worse. And the cultures were like, are you prepping on a Sunday? Yeah, everyone should be prepping on a Sunday, a couple of hours. Like, God, no, I'm not prepping on a Sunday. That's the last. I don't even want to come in on a Monday, let alone prep on a Sunday. And within a few months, I'd read 20 books on coaching, listened to 20 podcasts. Like, I was obsessed. I was absolutely obsessed. And I was like, well, this is good. This sounds like something's heading in the right direction, because I can't get enough of it. I love it. I'm scared of coaching people initially and like, oh, how am I going to do it? And there was all that kind of usual fear-based stuff going on, but there was just this natural curiosity and love for it. And I'd be coaching people, and I'd just have this thought of, I absolutely love this. And I'd be like, oh, that's cool. Even the tough conversations and whatever else, yeah, just had this deep sense that I'm really, really enjoying this, really loving it. And so I keep moving towards it and seeing where it's going to take me.
Feels like there's something intrinsic that's happened for you somewhere. What do you think that is?
I don't know. I'm not the person that I used to be. I've dropped. It's a game of subtraction. Coaching is a game of subtraction. It's about meeting somebody where they are. And when because I know deeply, fundamentally, that everybody is innately free and innately sits in well-being and is absolutely fine completely as they are. All I need to work out is what they believe and what they think is telling them otherwise. And then we just need to show them that that can be removed. So it's a game of subtraction. And I guess I've realized how much of my own stuff, my own shit basically, has dropped off. All these things I thought I had to be, thought I had to do, all the way I thought life worked. Once that drops off, you just keep dropping off, you're just left with essentially what you are. And when you realize that that is always and always has been fundamentally okay, then it completely changes your view on life, because then you're creating and living your life from a place of okayness, not going out into the world seeking your okayness in achievements, substances, relationships, activities. And once you really see that, then you can drop all of that.
It's fascinating. When salespeople now come to you for advice, guidance, they see a post, what sort of things are they coming to you with? Where are they, and where are they trying to get to?
Yeah, it's really impactful when salespeople contact you, or sales leaders, and they say, I read your post and I could have written that, or that's basically me. That sounds like me. You're like, oh, okay. And so there's, I'm not for everyone, but there are people who very much resonate with what I'm saying. And I think it's salespeople who feel that they're very successful and they know what to do, but like something's like missing a little bit and they're not quite sure what it is. Some of them just want to achieve bigger and better things, and that's fine. And others are feeling a bit more lost and a bit more trapped. So it's kind of a mixture, but they're all looking for clarity. The first thing, they just want to know, where am I going? What do I really want? And how do I get there? And I help them to work out, where have you been? Where are you now? And how do you know you're not where you're meant to be? Like, how do you know something's not quite right? And then we listen to all the reasons why life isn't the way they want it, and all the stories they have about who they believe they are. And then we slowly work towards, well, if you lived the perfect day and had the perfect life, what would that look like? And then they tell me a very generic answer, usually. Well, I'd be financially free, I'd play golf all day, or, just not work, basically, which everyone says. And they go, oh, that's great, that's a good start. And then we go much deeper into it, like, okay, what is it that you actually want to do? What are your natural gifts? What is it that you are here to bring to the world that you're not currently expressing? And I asked them things like, what did you love to do when you were a kid? What could you do for hours where you completely lose track of time, when you get completely in a state of flow? What are you doing? Like, what are these things which just feel, what are things that you find easy that other people find difficult? And how much have you brought those into your day-to-day life? And usually it's very little. And once we start to realize what these natural gifts, these natural passions are, then it's like, right, well, how can you do more of them today? Or do we need to change your life so that actually it's more centered around that? So yeah, clarity, who they are, what they actually want, what's actually going to make them happy. Because we've all pursued things and achieved things and then gone, that didn't quite work. Or I think I need more of that now. I've got that title, but I think I now need the next title, because that's how the mind works. It's never happy with what it's got. So when you realize how the mind works, you can change your relationship with it and realize that you don't need to take it seriously because it's never happy, and work out what it is that actually makes you fulfilled, and how much of it you have now and what needs to be brought into your life. So it's the clarity about what you really want, and then explaining a little bit more about how the mind works and how they've got to where they are, and some of the mental hurdles that they've created for themselves. That's the next big thing, is really around their mindset and how that all works, their view of life. And then lastly, how do you put that together in some form of momentum? Like, let's get the plan, let's get you pointing in the right direction, let's get you feeling and thinking in the right ways, and then let's see how fast you want to move that along. And everyone's different in those bits, but yeah, that's essentially what I start with usually.
Sales is a real dangerous career to follow, because I think we get into it because we want the money. That's fundamentally why you're in sales. That's what's going to drive and motivate you. Then I feel like what happens is you get to a point, then it's always bigger. The target's always bigger, like we discussed. The next thing's bigger. I know. And in my sales career, what happened was that I wasn't no longer after the paycheck. I was after the equity. So it just kept on going up, and actually the payout is going to be bigger. I'll work for longer, I'll grind for longer, but the payout's going to be bigger. And I just realised it was that internal. It's always going to be better when we get to the money. We get to the money. Whether it's the target, the buyout, the sellout, all that kind of stuff. It was just, it's a continuous thing. And I was in the same place as what you're describing, which was, when I get X, then I'll go and get Y. And I realised it was just a complete lie. And I think this is exactly what you've shared today, is that salespeople on that journey, probably their mind is always going to want more. That's growth, that's natural. But when and where does it stop? And I love what you've talked about here, which is, what do you actually want? I wonder, when people come to you, do they want more in sales, or do they actually often want a completely different life?
Well, the truth is, what we all want is a feeling. That's the fundamental truth. We're all looking for a feeling. We do all of the things that we do, try and be successful, have children, do activities, whatever it is, buy things, because we want a feeling. And the problem is that we believe that our feelings come from doing these things. That when I do this thing, then I get that feeling back. So I have to keep doing that thing to get that feeling. But when and I lead people through this, when you start to really investigate it, it's like, how is that car giving you a feeling? Like, when they build it in the factory, where do they place the feeling? Like, is that in the engine? And obviously it's a ridiculous, well, obviously there's no feeling in the car. Oh, okay. But you believe that getting that car or that title or that amount of money, whatever it is, it's going to give you the feeling that you want. Otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. Okay. So where are your feelings coming from? If they're not coming from this bank balance and from this thing and from that, where are they coming from? Well, obviously they're coming from me. Yeah, they are coming from you. So what makes you believe that you're not entitled to feel your own feelings now? Why don't you believe you can feel successful right now? Why don't you believe that you're not okay right now? And then they'll tell you why. Because I don't have this. Because life's not like this. Because I want this and I haven't got it. Because this person is doing that. And then we get into the real, okay. So this is the story. This is the world that this person's living in. And then we just start to poke holes in that world to show them that maybe the way they're seeing things isn't, there's maybe an alternative view. And then the biggest realization they have is that you can ever have is that everything that you want, you already have. You already have it inside you. Where else would it come from? And you're fully entitled to have it now. You don't have to do anything special to go and get it. Like, that's how we're brought up, is like, you need to go and achieve to feel good. You need to do things to be loved. You need to go and people please so you'll be accepted. And so we go on this outward journey to find what's always inside us, what's always been here. Not literally inside us, it just comes from us. And then once you know that, you recognize that you're free. You're free to do whatever you want. You don't have to go and do any of these things. And so a lot of salespeople go, oh, okay. Oh God, does that mean I have to leave sales? But no, if you enjoy it, go and do it, but do it from a place of completeness and wholeness and knowing that I already have everything that I need. And then if I choose to go and achieve in this area or that area, great, go and enjoy it. But I'm never falling back into the trap that I need to go and do those things to be okay. And then the world completely changes for you because you're free to make mistakes, go and do what you want. You're playing with the house's money. I'm already fine. I've already got everything I need. All these feelings are already here. And from that place, you create amazing things because it's selfless. It's not coming from scarcity and lack and fear and need to be proven right and need to be okay. You drop all of that and you can be selfless and open and free and vulnerable. And then people in those, creating from those spaces, extremely powerful. And they can do amazing things.
How do we get to the stage of tapping into that? Are there methodologies, strategies, or guidance you can offer of how can you get to that point of sort of feeling free within yourself?
Yeah, great question. Well, everything is about, for me, is about exploring your own experience. It's not about listening to what people say, especially me or anyone else, and saying, well, you're already free. You just haven't realized it yet. That's not going to help anyone. But it's about investigating your own experience. So, like, you are having an experience of life. So, you are the best person to investigate your own experience. You're told all these things about what's true and what's not true. And you choose to believe some of them and not some of the others. But when do you actually really investigate what's actually true for you? How can you be really sure that what you believe is actually true? So it's just about investigating your own experience and saying, well, just ask yourself, where do my feelings come from? Is this guy right? Like, are they really coming from, do I already have them? Am I already okay? Or do I actually need to go and do these things? Because it sure feels that way. So when I close that deal, I feel great. So this guy's talking nonsense because I know that when that deal comes in, I feel really good. Okay, but have you ever closed a deal and not felt good? I have. We all have, right? Or is there anyone else in the world, even if it's not you, who's ever closed a deal and not felt good? If you can find one person, then we know those feelings aren't coming from those deals. Okay. So that's a point to then go inward and go, well, where is this coming from? And really, it's just about investigating your own experience. What is my mind like? Am I my mind? I know about my mind. I know about my thoughts and feelings. So can I be them? When do I feel the happiest? When am I freest? When my mind's not there, when I'm in a state of flow. Like, investigate all these things and try and piece together what's accurate for you, and then see where the mismatches are, where the gaps, where are the things where I really believe I'm not okay, what are the things that I really think I need. Like, whenever I hear a strong sense of attachment to something, I always go straight towards that. Well, of course, I definitely need this, but I'm willing to talk over here. Oh, let's talk about the thing you definitely need, because that strong attachment shows that there's something going on there. So spend some time in questioning. Turn your curiosity. If you're a salesperson listening or whatever else, you must be very curious. Turn that on yourself and to your own experience. Where's it coming from? What is this? Where am I happiest? Where are these feelings coming from? When do I feel at my best? And really try and kind of see what comes up for you.
I feel like some of your message is about, there's two messages. One of them is about releasing the attachment to things. And I feel like the other one is about really, and this, I think that as men, is also, this is hard for us to do, which is to really feel your feelings, to really feel, who am I? What am I? And it's almost like, God, for me, after a couple of decades in sales, well, I identify as a salesperson. I'm this and I'm that and I'm those achievements. And you almost have to undo a lot of that to kind of step away from this world that you've built for yourself and have to rediscover who you are. I think it's very empowering, but it's also really scary to go on that journey, because what's the outcome going to be?
The outcome's freedom, but freedom's not for everyone. I often talk to my clients about, are you doing things for safety or for freedom? And if you look at your life and your decisions and the things that you do, you can pretty much categorize them in terms of safety or freedom. Now, safety is not a bad thing. It's not bad to be safe, and it's not good to be free. It's just to recognize the decisions you make and then to explore, do I want to keep playing it safe, or am I interested in freedom? Now, life is always inviting you to investigate what freedom looks like. Now, with safety, it's safety. You know what you're going to get. Like, carry on working in sales. Well, that's safe. You know what you're going to get. Carry on doing this. Don't do the presentation. Do this, do that. All those things, very much from safety. But then there's this invitation of freedom. Well, what's freedom? Why, you don't know. The freedom to step up and become a leader. Well, it's safe to stay as a rep. Well, there's freedom in becoming a leader. You get to investigate and experience something new. So it's really about leaving behind the known, and we're programmed, as humans, to stay safe and to stick with the known. But there's also this option to investigate freedom, which is to let that go. And once we let some of those things go, something new can come into it. Now, when it comes to identity, you can notice that you identify as all sorts of things: as a father, as a man, as a sales director, as an athlete, a stamp collector, DJ, whatever it is. You've got all these multiple identities, all which all come and go at different points of the day. Even you could run through 20 different identities, but none of them are what you are, because they're always changing. You're never all of those things. So you're not really any of those identities. So what if you stopped identifying with all of it? And you just drop those identities. They're useful in certain situations. It's useful to identify as a sales director when you walk into a meeting. Of course it is. But aside from when you really need it, just drop those identities and just be free. Just be free to see what comes up, to feel anything that comes up. This is a big blocker for me. It was like not wanting to deal with the sensations and trying to push them away. But when you realize that it's safe to feel any feeling and any sensation and any thought, because we are inherently thought and feeling proof. We've been built this way. And you can know that now by reflecting on your own experience of your life and realize you've always dealt with every feeling, every sensation, and every thought. I'm not saying you enjoyed them, but you've always coped. And you always will. It's safe to feel any feeling, any sensation, and experience any thought, no matter how distressing. It's like saying that if you watch a horrendous program on TV, that somehow the screen would get damaged. It's like any program can play out on a TV screen. The screen's always fine. Doesn't matter what appears on that screen, it can never be damaged. And that's what you are fundamentally. You are, in this analogy, the screen. Any experience can flicker up, come and go, and they come and go all the time. Nothing can hurt you, nothing can damage you, because you're before that program, you're during the program, and you're after it, and anything will come and go within that. You're inherently free to experience anything. And so the invitation is, how free do you want to be? Because freedom doesn't mean it's always going to be nice. Freedom is knowing it's okay to not have a lot of money and be all right. Safety is, well, I need a lot of money to be okay, or I need a certain amount to be okay. Freedom is releasing that attachment and going, I know I can be okay either way. And so I drop that attachment to money. And funnily enough, when we do that, we tend to get the money we want. So that's the paradoxical thing. The more we move into freedom, I don't know how it works, but the more amazing life seems to get.
That's incredible. That's incredible. The freedom you're talking about, psychological freedom, financial freedom, just define freedom for you, for me, for people.
Freedom is knowing that no matter what happens, you are always okay. Like fundamentally, you are able to cope with anything and everything that happens because you always have done. Don't just believe me. Look at the evidence of your own life. You've always coped with everything that's happened, no matter how hard it's got, no matter what difficult things you've experienced. You've always coped. Might not have enjoyed it, but you've always coped. So settle back into that. Know that you don't have to fight life or try and be a certain way to be okay. You can already cope with everything. You've already built to be indestructible from that perspective. And the more you lean into that freedom, the less the mind gets involved about, oh, you know, we need to do this to be okay. And what about that? And, you know, it's very fearful and it comes from safety. And the more we step into our own freedom, just recognize the freedom that you already are now, then everything else kind of melts away a bit. And then we're free to get completely caught up in the story as well. We're free to forget all that and free to think life is absolutely terrifying and how are we going to get out of this thing and what's going to go wrong. We're also free to forget. And that's the thing that a lot of people find difficult. It's like, well, I want my freedom, but I want it to be a certain way. But freedom means, complete freedom means the freedom to forget that you are free. And sometimes I wonder if the human experience is that's how it's been built. It's like we're put into this game or whatever, if you like, no, like built completely free, but then a little trick is played to make us think that we're not, because otherwise the game wouldn't be believable.
It's like our own minds are holding us captive.
They certainly can do. And so changing your relationship with that and realizing that you're not your mind, because that can only happen when you think you are your mind. But you can recognize now that you're aware of your thoughts. Your thoughts come and go. Your feelings come and go. Your sensations come and go. Everything comes and goes. But what you are remains throughout all of that. It must do. Because your experience doesn't stop. It's one continuous experience. So you are beyond that. You're beyond your thoughts and feelings. You're there before they're there, and you're there during, and you're there after. And you're always okay. And we can get caught up in them, completely identified with them. And as we start to change our relationship with our mind, we spend more time knowing that we're not our thoughts and feelings. And we're able to actually, like Stoicism points to kind of taking a step back and keeping life at a little bit of arm's length. Like, well, I know this isn't really happening to me and I'm trying to not get too caught up. And this is going a step further by saying, well, when you know you're free, you're actually free to completely engage with it. Like not hold back on any of it, completely engage because you know that you're free. And that's a step further, I would say, or another step into freedom if you want to take it. It's not for everyone. A lot of people have got too much to lose. You know, a lot of people have got too much to lose to go for freedom. So they will stay safe. And that's not a bad thing. It's just there's an open invitation for freedom if you want it.
In that scenario where there's too much to lose, what is it that people are holding on to? Past beliefs, finance, their current situation, scared of change, self-limiting beliefs. What are people holding on to?
All of that.
Yeah.
A good life. Well, I've got a good life. Don't want to rock why would I rock the boat? I've got a good life. Cool. That's good. There's other stuff available. It's not, no one's wrong. There's no right or wrong way to live life, I don't think. There's just an invitation to keep exploring if you want to and see what else is there. And there's different experiences there. But if you built yourself a good life, you got a good living, you know, life's going well, why would you explore other things? Why would you question who you are? Oh, I don't care who I am. I'm happy. Cool. But for some of us, We don't know why. We, and we see sort of psychological suffering as something awful, but it also appears to be an invitation to see what else is there. And some of us take it and some of us don't. And again, it's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just, some of us seem to be invited to go a bit further into it, and some of us appear to be doing it. And this is what happens. So, yeah, there's all sorts of reasons not to do it.
I love the way that you're using the words invited. Because I couldn't work out when I was going through my difficult and challenging dark times, my panic attacks as well, my depression, whether I was just being dragged somewhere else and I went through this for years. And I'm thinking about if someone else is going through some challenging times at the moment, to maybe reframe it as an invitation. And maybe now I can reflect back on those years, think of it as an invitation to inquire or be curious about what it is. Because I do feel like there's often a bigger purpose for people. And also I believe you have lots of purposes, we wear many hats. Mm-hmm. But sometimes there's something different, something bigger, something on the other side of that feeling. If someone's going through a challenging time now, what would your guidance be to them to maybe lean into that inquiry or that invitation?
Well, when you recognize that you are already complete and already safe and everything's already okay, and that might need some help and some guidance to get to that point, then you can start to look at what's being offered. And if you're being invited to look at something or something is being forced upon you, there's always multiple ways of looking at it. So what might someone else in your shoes think about this thing that they've been presented with? What are some of the opportunities that could come out of this? What might you learn from it? And this isn't just to put a happy face on it and, and try and think positive about it. But really it's like, it's here. This thing, whatever it is here. So firstly, just accept that it's here. You don't have to like it, but just starting point is it's definitely here. Okay, now it's here and I realize that. What do I want to do about it? At least just recognize that it's actually happening and then start to think, right, what do I want to do? How do I want to deal with this? Because when we start to really engage with it, that's when it starts to transform. And when it starts to transform and change us. So acceptance that it's actually happening is the first thing. And then, the journey from there could take you anywhere.
It's interesting because acceptance is, I'm glad you said that. It took me, I'm going to say years to accept that there was something else or there was a different direction that I needed to go on. And now when I look back, I'm not regretful, but I think about the years that I battled against that, suppressing with going home and substances and this and that. And it would have been great to have had some wisdom or guidance to have kind of lent into that at the point. And I feel like, so I didn't reach out to a coach, but now I think with wisdom and speaking to coaches like yourself, I think that would have been one of my first steps now, is to think, because I wouldn't have known what a life coach or a coach was. I did go to therapy, and I don't feel like I got the answers from therapy.
Same.
Yeah.
But it was a useful step.
Useful step, absolutely.
Start talking. Yeah, my wife's a counsellor, and the most difficult thing is people who aren't ready to talk. So part of it is learning how to talk about what you're actually feeling. You've mentioned, men a lot and the way we can be. Some of that can be a bit more difficult for men as well, traditionally, to talk about it. So if that's the natural step for you, just to talk to someone, then go and do that. And then if it feels like you're ready to start investigating it and seeing what might be going on and be invited to look at things in a different way and be challenged, to be frank. Coaching is not particularly easy because I will invite you to look at things and see things differently and then take action on it. So one of the key things about coaching is once you've seen something, let's take a step towards it and see what happens. Always steps that you want to take and that you're comfortable with, but it's not just about having a nice idea or a philosophical conversation. You don't just leave the session going, well, Nick says I'm free, so that's cool. Off I go. It's like, well, now we need to go and test it. You need to test it in your direct experience to see if it's true for you. It doesn't matter what I think is true. Ignore all of that. Ignore everything you've ever been told, and go and investigate it for yourself.
Once you get the invitation, do you, in your experience, do people know what it is that what the invitation's for? I certainly didn't.
No, I don't think anyone really does. I think that's part of it, isn't it? Yeah, who knows? No, I think it's a mystery.
So it might be an invitation to a different or a new life, and the way it's showing up is discontentment, restlessness with your current life.
Yeah, like the knock at the door. If it feels like there's a knocking at the door, go and see what it is. It might just be your life's a little bit out of alignment. Sometimes with people I coach, it's just some small things. Some of the people I coach are high performers. They love sales. They just want to get better. They love it. They don't want to get out. They don't feel trapped by the money, any of this stuff. They love it. I'm not here to rescue salespeople from the evil sales industry and say you all need to leave sales and stop chasing money and do things that are best for the whoever, different people or the planet or whatever. No, I want you to express yourself in the fullest way possible. And for a lot of salespeople, that's to be the best that they can. How can we get to this real high performance flow state whilst also keeping everything else in balance? How can I move from selling to serving my clients? How can I make it selfless rather than being about me and my numbers? How can I sit in front of a client and just be curious and have my mind quiet, not thinking about, what do I need to say next? This is what needs to happen. If this deal doesn't close, what is my boss thinking about me? What is this client thinking about me? Calming that mind down so they can just do what they do best. Because a lot of salespeople are like, I just need my mind to get out of the way. It's driving me crazy. I know what I'm doing. I'm great at sales. And so we work on changing the relationship with the mind and some of the stuff that's going on there. So I have no outcomes in mind. I have no ulterior motives. I don't mind when a client turns up what result they get. I'm not here to point them in a certain direction. I'm here to help them realize the direction that they want to take by themselves. There's no point me thinking I know what's best for my clients. I don't. But I help them find the answers themselves. And some of them decide to go and do one thing, and then after 3 months go, actually, no, I don't want to do that. Great. What have you learned? Well, I've learned I don't want to do that. I want to do this instead. Brilliant. That's fine as well. So yeah, I have no direction for people to take other than to understand what it is that they really want and do that from a place of freedom.
I've loved chatting to you today. And I'm just amazed that I've just looked over to the time and that an hour has just flown by.
Yeah.
And I could really listen to you all day. It's been a really wonderful conversation.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
And yours.